The lectionary text for Sunday, October the 7th, has four different readings, and the particular reading that I'll be focusing on is from the 10th chapter of the Gospel according to Mark. It is a passage in which Jesus talks about marriage, divorce, and also the importance of welcoming children. A group of Jewish leaders, lay leaders called the Pharisees, questioned Jesus on divorce. And Jesus says to them that although Moses, the Hebrew prophet, allowed divorce in certain circumstances, Jesus believed that husbands and wives should be married throughout life. He says that the two become one flesh, and he bases that on his reading of the creation story in Genesis, where Adam and Eve are created for one another. Then he goes on to talk about the importance of welcoming children. And I think it's very important to make a connection between those two teachings of Jesus, because what I hear Jesus saying about the importance of marriage is that marriage is important for the welfare of children. Neither wives nor children should be left destitute by the breakup of a family. The significance for us today is that it helps us to see how much Jesus values the most vulnerable people in any given society. In his day, women without husbands often descended into poverty, and children were considered to be less valuable than adults in the first century, which is why Jesus wants to keep husbands and wives together to prevent wives and children from becoming destitute. And for our society today, I think this is a challenge for us to focus on marriage, to focus on the importance of husbands and wives being true to their marriage promises to one another, not only for their own welfare, but for the welfare of their children. Studies show that children in single-parent families have a much higher chance of being in poverty these days than children with two-parent families. There has been a steep decline in marriage rates for the last 50 years, and I've seen this in my own ministry. So the focus on marriage that I think that we need to maintain as congregations and also as a country is really something that can help the next generation in a very powerful and significant way. And of course, in our nation today, we have a strong marriage equality movement that's underway, where gays and lesbians are looking for the ability to be married to one another. And I think that it's also important that they be able to make marriage promises for the good of children who may be part of their families. I would challenge preachers to address this text in a way that holds together Jesus' teachings on marriage with his teachings that little children should be valued and should be allowed to come to them. Very often, these two stories are dealt with in isolation. They're not held together. And in fact, of all the gospel writers, only Mark does hold them together. And I commend Mark for that. The other gospel writers let the stories operate in independence and are separated from one another. But if we hold these two stories together, we see the deep concern that Jesus has for the most vulnerable members of his society, women without husbands and children. And our challenge today is to reflect that same concern for the welfare of all of God's children.